Welcome to Flock Talk, the podcast where we feature your favorite authors and narrators. Hosted by Craig Hart and Sarah Hannon. Visit us today at pinkflamingoproductions.com. And now, Flock Talk. Well, hello, all you happy flockers out there, and welcome to Flock Talk. My name is Craig Hart, and I'm here with my muscular co-host, Sarah Hannon. How are things going in your world, Sarah?
I can't. I do have a child I need to pick up a lot, and he is 60 pounds. So I am, it's not wrong to say.
No, I'm telling you, don't challenge a mom to a fight. They will take you down.
Seriously.
But his twin brother has been playing baseball for the first time, which is because baseball is such a rapid fire, exciting sport to spectate. And
Said with no sarcasm whatsoever.
No. And when you're watching 8-year-olds do it and they don't have outs and stuff and everybody gets to bat, 2 innings takes a while. But it's fun because he really enjoys, like, he runs by me and he just waves. And it's just his favorite part. It's like...
Is it T-ball or are they actually pitching?
They're pitching with, like, this machine.
Oh, okay.
Thing,
That's good.
So it's consistent-ish.
Yeah. I stopped playing baseball very quickly because I kept getting hit by the pitcher. I'm like, I don't like this.
I'm starting to suspect you're doing that on purpose.
Why did the coach hide my helmet?
Well, that was the thing. It was the coach pitching, and he just wasn't a good pitcher. And I'd, like, get hit in the ankle and, like, yeah.
Yikes.
Oh, man.
Hence my distaste for baseball started.
I love baseball.
These things start early.
I do.
All right, Sarah, why don't you kick off our guest today?
I shall.
Figuratively.
Curt Bonnem is a lifelong actor, musician, and variety performer who is now an award-winning full-time audiobook narrator. He has done books with Pink Flamingo, Fireside, and Northern Lake. Chicago-born and an LA transplant, Curt now lives in Atlanta, where he continues to pursue his passion for the arts. Welcome, Curt.
Hi. Hey, everybody. How's it going?
It says here in my script I'm to ask you how you became so absurdly sexy. And did you write the script yourself, Curt?
I did not, and that was a surprise. Parents, right? I mean, that would be what it is.
Also in the script, it says that you say, I read Craig's how-to manual on that very topic.
Oh, yeah, of course. Who wouldn't? It's all laid out for you.
Scripts anyway.
I do.
This is very suspicious. But great. No, it is great to have you here, Curt. Thank you for agreeing to be on Flock Talk. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Now, as a stage actor, you've portrayed many famous characters, including Frank Sinatra, William S. Burroughs, and Tennessee Williams. What has been your favorite stage role to date?
Oh, man, that is always such a hard one because I've, done probably hundreds of, at least 100 plays, if not somewhere above that. All 3 of those that you mentioned, I had a blast, each for their own reasons. Very different, certainly. Pseudolus in Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum was a blast. The dentist in Little Shop, I did that a couple times. That was super fun. Just like the absolute favorite. I don't know, that I couldn't even say. It's...
Yeah, they're my children. I don't know. It's like a writer
so
with their
many
books.
of them were fun, so...
Well, when you're portraying a famous character, how do you prepare for that role? Do you research? Do you watch film of them walking, talking?
A lot of research.
What is that process like?
Yeah, a lot of research. Like with Tennessee Williams, I actually got to play him in 2 different shows, interestingly enough. And I did a ton of research, read his memoirs, obviously, as well as his plays, and then tried to find as much actual footage of him as I could to get his, mannerisms and his speech patterns and things like that. But yeah, with each of those, same with Burroughs, I, read biographies and documentaries on him and just studied as much as I could.
And when you do, after that research and you're on the stage, is there a line between doing an impression of that character and doing an impersonation of that character? And how do you walk that line?
Well, I've never considered myself an impersonator. I don't think I'm very good at that in particular. You know, there's like a few people I can maybe do. I'm not trying to do an impersonation, but I definitely try to do the best job I can to inhabit what I felt were their characteristics and their vocal patterns and things like that. Certainly, Tennessee Williams and William S. Burroughs in particular, they had very specific voices. That Burroughs voice is, you know, pretty unique. So I try to get as much as I can, but without losing the, you know, emotional connection and the reality of what's happening on stage. Because if you lose that, then it doesn't matter how good an impersonation you do.
They often tell actors to break a leg, but you, being the consummate overachiever, went one better and broke your neck.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how that went down, so to speak.
Yeah, that was when I was 16, and I was a gymnast and a professional juggler, and I had some friends who were doing a youth circus in Chicago, and it's crazy. They were based in Antioch, Illinois, which is north of Chicago, and I went up to visit them and hang out, and then we drove back down, and they were going to have a show at Navy Pier in Chicago, and on the drive down, everybody was like saying, "You should let Curt do the show. You should let Curt do the show." And the circus manager was saying, "No, I can't. I didn't bring any of the release forms." And they eventually broke him down and let me perform. And it was like maybe the third or fourth show of the day, and my parents were in the audience. And we did a routine where somebody would do a front flip off a mini trampoline, and then they'd get on their hands and knees, and somebody would do a flip over them and then get in line with them. So you'd do a flip over people. And I had been doing like 2 or 3 people. So when my parents were there, I decided I'd show off and do 10 people. And I made it, and I landed on my feet, but I went into the front roll too fast and broke and dislocated my neck.
Oh, my.
And yeah, my parents said, you know, they had nightmares about it for years. They were watching. You know, my mom says that my dad seemed like he was out of the seat before it even happened, you know, like running down. And funny enough, I was the most calm person there, probably because I was in shock. But I was like totally calm and everybody else was freaking out. But I lucked out in the fact that I was about 10 minutes away from the best spinal unit in the whole country, which happened to be in Chicago. And really weird, earlier that year in my health class, I had done an extra credit report on an article in a health magazine about this doctor who had invented this new spinal fusion surgery. And that was my surgeon. So I had the best, you know, the guy who invented the surgery. And so I was really, really lucky that I'm not either dead or paralyzed. I was one of 2 people in that whole overflowing ward that wasn't paralyzed. So it was a pretty intense experience. Strangely enough, the other guy in there that wasn't paralyzed was across town basically doing the same thing. He was in a gymnastics show and basically did the same thing. And then the following year, this is all very strange, the following year, I stopped competing in gymnastics, obviously, and my friend who took my place on the floor exercise at the state meet warm-ups, he did the exact same thing, doing a front flip and hitting his head. Ended up in the same hospital, you know, same wing, had the same surgery. We have the exact same scars. It's very weird.
Now, one of your many popular audiobooks is called Tamed, book 1 in the Black Dragon Brotherhood series. Tell us a little bit about that book.
I think it was a fairly early one that I did with Pink Flamingo, and it was really fun. It just had a lot of really fun humor. It was about you know, a dragon shifter who finds his fated mate, who happens to be just a human woman that he thinks is like a sorceress, and it was just really fun because it had a lot of really fun sort of pop culture references. And one of my favorite parts of it was where it's one of the reasons he thinks she's this sorceress is they're fighting these creatures. I forget the exact thing, what these creatures were, but who had they were in the sky, and she got a projector from her house and projected Star Wars onto the clouds to distract them and make them think that they were, fighting this large army. And so that was really fun. And, it had, quotes from Star Wars. Of course, the famous one, it's a trap and all that. So that was really fun to do. But it was just really like sort of fun and quirky and had a lot of, fun humor in it.
How did you get into recording audiobooks? Was it because you're like, I'm not jumping over 10 people again, or?
Oh, no, believe me, I went back to doing gymnastics anyway, so I continued to do that stuff after I broke my neck. I was a kid, we're indestructible, right? Who's going to break their neck twice? My parents were not happy about that. No, I got into audiobooks very much because of my parents. I was doing Hound of the Baskervilles, a stage production, playing Sherlock Holmes, and my Watson was Charles or Chuck Constant, who was an audiobook narrator. I didn't know this at the time. We didn't talk about that, but it was after the fact. We were friends on Facebook. I saw him posting about his audiobook work. I'd see him like, oh, just did my, 16th book of the year, and I was like, oh, I didn't know he did that. I love audiobooks. I've been listening to them since I was a kid with my parents in the car when it was, books on tape, and then went to CDs. And so I commented on one of his posts saying like, oh, I'd be, as we all know as audiobook narrators, when your actor friends especially find out you do audiobooks, I typically did the typical thing, was like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about that. And he said, yeah, sure. Anytime, let's grab lunch and we'll talk about it. And I also mentioned that to my parents because they love audiobooks, and they just sort of jumped on it. They were like, yeah, you have to talk to him about that. You'd be great at that. You do all these accents and voices, and you should do that. I'm like, okay. And then I didn't. And like a year goes by, and I saw him posting again. I mentioned it to my parents again, and they were like, wait, you haven't talked to him yet? You have to do that. And then they also said, if you need help, like getting equipment to get started, like we will help you. They were just like really insistent that I try this out. So that made me kind of go, well, okay, why not? And then it happened all pretty quickly. That was in the fall of 2017. I started doing a ton of research like right away, and just was like reading everything I could and going on the forums and reading all the threads for years and looking at ACX and calling SAG and all this stuff. And while my wife was out of town for Christmas, I took that time and built my first booth because I knew that she might complain if I was doing it while she's like, what are you doing? So I built my first booth, and I met with Chuck, and we talked, and I, learned some stuff from him. And then the very beginning of 2018, I put up my first sample on ACX, got my first book within a couple of weeks, and have been doing it nonstop, like pretty much nonstop ever since. So I kind of got lucky. But yeah, my parents were really the ones that were like, you have to do this. And they're my biggest fans. After my first book, my dad said, do they have awards for these? Because you should win an award. I'm like, aw, that's so nice.
Well, luck may play into it, but being skilled and talented helps, and you certainly have those. Now, speaking of that, you also recorded Northern Lake Audio's version of The War of the Worlds, and you did the entire book in an accent not your own. How difficult was it to maintain that throughout the entire performance?
It's tough. I've done several books in full UK accent, and, I love it. It's really fun, but yeah, it's always a challenge to do that. You have to really pay attention and try and make sure you're doing it right. And there's certainly probably a lot more punch and roll when I do books like that than normal. But obviously when you're doing a whole book too, it gets easier as you go, as you get going with it, it can flow a lot more. But yeah, it's daunting. I won't deny it. It is definitely daunting to do.
If you could narrate, if you were like, you get one more book, one more, what would that book be?
Like any book?
Any book. You could take one Harry Potter book out of Jim Dale's,
Oh, Okay, well,
children's mouths.
Dune. Oh, definitely. I'm a big Dune fan. Of course, I'm jealous of Simon and Scott. getting to work on those. Yeah, I think Dune would be the one.
What a project to go out on, too, wow, that would be incredible.
It would be. I'm sure you've heard the story of the guy that was new and Dune was on ACX and he recorded the whole book.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh.
But he got to record it. Just no one will really ever hear it.
Right.
Oh, that just makes me sick. Yeah, narrators. If there is a classic or a best-selling book like that on ACX by a big publisher, don't do it. It's a scam. Okay, got to regroup from that one.
We're all like recovering from that. Like, oh man.
Well, this brings us right into the next question, though, which is, what is a piece of advice you would give to a beginning narrator?
Google it.
I mean, I would say do what I did. I mean, I think it's really important to do your research before you record your first anything or like start trying to get work. Like, do your research. And now there's so much out there. Obviously, as many of us do now, when someone asks us, hey, how do I get into this? I now do the typical thing of I send them to narratorsroadmap.com. Because it's just such a great compilation of all of the stuff like that I found on my own when I was doing that research and searching Google about audiobooks. Just learn everything you can about the industry and about audio. And then the other one is just listen. It's so important to listen to audiobooks if you're going to do them. It's one of the best ways to learn. And that's one of the first things I tell my students. Like, if you are not listening to audiobooks, start now and do it a lot. And, you'll find out what you like. It's even good to listen to audiobooks that are bad, to find out what doesn't work. So research and definitely listening to a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah, good advice. Well, that ends our main questions, but we also have a segment of bonus questions that we like to call Hot Six.
Buckle up, listeners. It's time for Hot Six.
What is the most overrated book you've ever read?
Maybe like Atlas Shrugged, probably. I liked Fountainhead when I was in high school, and then later read Atlas Shrugged and realized, oh yeah, this is really not that good.
All right, what famous literary work have you never read, but you feel like you should have?
Oh, Slaughterhouse-Five. I really should read that. And then probably things like, like War and Peace, Vanity Fair, I haven't read. Even like the Bible. I'm not religious, but I feel like I should read the Bible at some point. Be interesting.
I got lost in all the begetting at the beginning.
There are new versions.
There's quite a few versions, yes.
If you could be any animal for one day, what would it be?
It would be cool to be like a hawk or an eagle, to fly for a day. But if I'm honest, probably just a house cat. I love cats. And they're just cool.
What a life, too.
Yes, that's what I think.
What is your biggest grammatical pet peeve?
Oh, that's easy. Who was ever taught that you spell the word lose with 2 O's? Who ever, anywhere, was taught that? No one, ever. It's not how you spell it. And it blows my mind how many people do that. I don't understand it, and it drives me crazy. And casted.
I just got triggered.
Casted,
Sorry.
too.
Looking back over your entire lifetime, what is your most embarrassing favorite song?
Embarrassing favorite song? I mean, I'm not really embarrassed of any songs I like. But maybe when I was a kid, I had the Chuck Mangione album that kind of made him popular, and I would put that on while I was like doing housework. So like the Chuck Mangione, I think it's the Feel So Good. The,
Yes.
Probably that, yeah.
What is your favorite place you've ever lived?
Favorite place I've ever lived? That's tough, too, because I mean, I loved growing up where I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, but winter was not fun. So I left there to go to Los Angeles, and I was in LA for 30 years, which I loved. Through my late college and just post-college years, I lived in a house there with several friends. That was really fun. We had like stand-up arcade games and a pool, and you know, we had my band practice there and stuff. That was really fun. I think at this point I'd probably say where I live now, my house now here in Atlanta. I really love this house. It's a cool mid-century, built in 1963. Me and my wife had it remodeled, and I have a really cool rec room in my basement along with this amazing thing that happened. There's this door. There was a door attached to the basement that when we finally got it open, like it hadn't been opened in 30 years, it seemed like it was just stuck shut. It's a 5x9 concrete room, like 3/4 buried in the backyard. So I was like, booth, yay.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And yeah, I love we got the rec room here with a pool table and a baby grand piano and darts and my self-tape wall. And we basically live in the woods, looking out our living room window to our backyard. There's just woods, and yeah, I'd probably say, okay, let me maybe change my answer. When I was growing up, I didn't fully get to appreciate it. If I had gotten to be like a teenager there, like my sister, it might have been even better. But there was one point when I was in like 1st through 4th grade that my family, we got like a mansion. But it was one level, and it was like a block long, and every room was like, you know, the floor plan of a house. It was just huge. And it had a, you know, pool with a diving board and a slide and a cabana with a kitchen and a ping pong table and a basketball tennis court and a 3-hole putting green and like an acre of open space and like an actual tree house and stuff like that. It was a really cool house, like just massive and neat. I mean, I got to enjoy obviously some of that, the tree house and the pool, and I played tennis and all that kind of stuff. But that was a really neat house. I certainly understand how my mother did not like having to keep that house up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a cool place.
All right, well, that wraps up our questions for today. But thanks so much for Curt for joining us. This has been great.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
It's a lot of fun.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Flock Talk, the podcast where we feature your favorite authors and narrators. Hosted by Craig Hart and Sarah Hannon. This podcast is produced by Pink Flamingo Productions. Editing by Craig Hart. Visit us today at pinkflamingoproductions.com.